I think Greg probably doesn't really require an introduction. Most of you know him. But if you're connected in any way to the art scene in this town, you most likely know him or his work. Greg is an American sculptor whose primary medium of expression is cast bronze. He's an officer of our board, the National Sculpture Society. He's the sculptor in residence at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine here in Manhattan, and he has been for many years. And he's also an instructor at the Art Students League here in New York. A graduate of Columbia College, he was featured on the cover of their distinguished quarterly publication, Columbia College Today, which I received, and I was like, Greg's on the cover! And interviewed in a really beautiful, lengthy article titled The Scholarly Artist. Greg considers himself to be part of a representational art underground, which I love.
That's great.
Basing his work on the philosophy of spiritual realism, merging realistic images and abstract masses of form, space, and energy. Greg's work has been exhibited in museums and galleries worldwide, and his sculpture is in dozens of public and private collections. Including in New York City. You can visit his monumental peace fountain up at the Cathedral of St. John, or his Scholar's Lion, which graces the campus at Columbia University. It's a beautiful, large work. At the Art Students League, Greg leads an extraordinary program called Model to Monument, or M2M, which is a partnership with the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. And I will let him tell you about that. Thank you so much for being here, Greg.
Well, I'm very honored and very pleased to be here among friends and colleagues. And I thought I would give some background about emerging artists. I believe that it's a mission to have intergenerational educational activities which seem to promote the natural curiosity that is amongst all of us from our very first sense of the self. And for reasons having to do with art education and psychology and study of education, art history, a little background essentially is that New York City needed a children's sculpture garden, and I could not find one in any location. Is there anyone here who is familiar with the Alfred Barr MoMA first director, whose very first exhibit was on the beauty and the creativity of childhood? And I just think that is something that would be broadly supported, highly visited. And when I brought this notion, where is the children's sculpture garden in New York City? That was one of the sort of early dialogues that I had with the dean of the cathedral, St. John the Divine, going back to the late 70s. In the late 70s, John Dockin, who at that time was director of the National Academy, and also worked at the school, and I graduated from the school for a 3-year study certificate with Evangelist for Doctors. So I have many friendships from those early years. And John put me in touch with people that were organizing a playground sculpture for the 96th Street Central Park playground. And they were calling together a committee and an open competition for New York City artists who would be interested in submissions to a jury of the committee that was populated by officials of the Parks Department. So I was very curious about this. And again, I'm telling you this story as I was telling it to my future sponsor at the cathedral, James Parks Morton, whose vision is well known to everyone in New York, having to do with the artist in residency program and the companion program of building again the Cathedral of St. John of God in terms of the arrested period from World War II until the early 1960s. So he was terribly interested in things such as innovation having to do with early childhood development in the arts. And I participated in this citywide competition. A small maquette was presented. Others presented their maquettes. All of us have done this in our careers. But I befriended, because of the process, I befriended a man named Bronson Dinger, whose father was the Parks Commissioner under, I believe it was Lieberman in the Parks Administration. And there was a new idea to bring art and culture in terms of events and collection of art to be identified as something very popular with New Yorkers. And Bronson Binger gave a gallery focus to the maquettes, which included these works having to do with early childhood and rationale for development of youngsters under the apprenticeship idea. What that meant was that in terms of a cohesive collection of theories about how does one create serious proposals for youngsters, and could they learn something as complicated as placement of works under a professional set of criteria. That led to my appointment, and that led to my building of the monument that I'd like to show you in these next couple slides. The world of the crypt included the traditions of model to monument as practiced by many of our distinguished members, both today and in years past. The sculpture garden of Shakespeare. This is in Stratford-upon-Avon. I'm showing you the inside of the crypt studio, going back to the mid-80s, and the Acton in bronze in Stratford in the original property of Shakespeare. At Sermon Stream, you see the finished maquette in the work on the left side. The crypt studio was a place of apprenticeship, as I was stating before, but it was also a gathering place for artists connected with St. John of the Line and the certain educational mission.
Greg?
Yes.
That cinder block that's on the back of that base, is that stopping you from tilting up in the studio? The cinder block?
Oh, the cinder block.
Yeah.
Is that a ballast?
Yes.
It may be, sure. It's a sculpture trail, and my career is very connected with public art and placements in many different historical and environmental gardens, and the question of the apprenticeship for these young emerging artists always was, could they access a sense of professional requirements as they're studying in high school and undergraduate? years. This is perhaps one of the final works that I did in the church, the Adam and Eve. Its bronze model was part of the Palazzo Vecchio retrospective in the center of Florence, which is enormously proud. And as part of the my final enlargement model, you see on the right side, the two rivers, which is a homage to the sense of rivers and civilization and the bondages that are transatlantic between many of the Italian Renaissance sculptors and the theme of rivers in their work. And I have a Hudson River, sort of a two rivers composition of both rivers. Lots of it. The board found it attractive. They wished me to enlarge and cast, and they had it on display. This is just a review, Michelle and Gwen, of our exhibit we fondly remember, in which we celebrated the art and creativity of young people, emerging artists, and professional artists, in the sort of a sense of intergenerational cooperation and leadership. And some of the apprentices are present today. Did I see John? Or I saw John before. And so the sort of rationale of the apprenticeship at St. John asked a deeper question, which came into focus after several years of teaching sculpture as an instructor at the League. And you saw the Adam and Eve maquette before. This was my first exhibit as an instructor at the League. We invented, of course, in the tradition of French and Borglum, having to do with models and mid-sized models, and the idea that models are, well, Borglum was the first sculptor residence at the theater, and in the period of 1901 to 1910, his studio, which was my studio, he created the couplet sets, prophets and saints, that go around the clear story of the Gothic architecture.
Greg,
Yes.
could you try using the mic?
Can you hear me better?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Or just keep it towards you.
Sculpture is practiced in the League. We have the course end-to-end, which really brings together the annual refreshment or renewal along the Hudson River at Riverside Park South. And for a 6-year period, perhaps 7 years, we educated really as a weekly seminar. That's what seemed to work best. The dedication to learning about the experience of expansion of works from models, both in terms of thematic development and the deepening of imagery. Things that aren't usually taught in sculpture, I thought belong together in a program which gives high visibility to young artists, helps them build their portfolios, and brings a great deal of viewership along the Hudson River to the ever-changing modern experience of the students. So in a sense, this is the external studio of the students league. And here you see the location map in year 5 or 6. We had many successful experiences. We don't actually have a sculpture studio. We meet weekly in the library on floor 2.5. And it's a seminar in which students are challenged with all the issues that are required by the Parks Department to have a worthy, safely built work that will get a permit. The permit is just as important to emerging artists, perhaps even more important. But there's no real sort of cohesive seminar that brings all the planning and work together in order to qualify for that permit. So I'm always talking about the coordination of professionals coming together and learning the language of blueprints, how to read them, how to think creatively, and how to find support for your enlargement, and the role in which architects and engineers are so helpful to all those who are involved, the creators of their works. We've had two major hurricanes in the city during the program. One of the works has fallen down. There have never been any lawsuits, or at least that I'm aware of. Hopefully trying to mentor them into a tradition of professional qualification that we're going to need. That all of us, as young artists, perhaps we were taught, I mean, it's a lot to do to succeed in this way.
Greg,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do they pay for their own supplies when they create these sculptures?
No.
So they get funded?
We have an internal funded, annually funded budget that affords works that are of the scale that you see. Now,
So you pay for it yourself?
the students are offered scholarships. And in that package of scholarships are all the components of learning, production, the engineer, the fees, everything that is going to allow them to progress in order for their student graduation piece to be on display for 9 months along Dawson River. So I think this is something useful to them. And she is gorgeous, hammered metal boards. Today we had many someone asked the question, Greg, about permanently gifted to the city of Key West. So the next time they fly from New York to Charlotte, and you take a smaller plane to Key West at the airport in this plaza, and you'll see what perhaps you might have seen along the Hudson River several years ago. In addition to the model monument, we make a lot of attention to a mid-sized model as a concept that is not only historical to many of the artists that we have in our society, but very necessary as a place of review and criticism before the commitments to the more expensive time and efforts and money to produce the full-scale works. And so those are put on display every year in the lead galleries. And it's been widely supported and noticed. So the title of our program really is Model to Mid-Sized Technology. What I'm doing now is walking you through the 15-page presentation that the students are responsible for in the month of January after their notion of sculpture's concept has been sufficiently developed, both as a maquette that survives a lot of criticism, very helpful criticism, their own sense of improving and revising the maquette, and they're responsible for a 15-minute oral presentation of the arts of the building before the commissioner and the curator of parks. And I thought this would be very interesting to present because an end-to-end doesn't have any special backdoor, if you will, to give these younger artists their 9-month display permit. They have to stand on their own 2 feet and present a worthy presentation that includes a clear explanation of what their visual thinking process is to create these effects, what are the dimensions, what is the relationship at the site, and so forth. This was Sherwin's piece. He actually did enter and completed the triathlon. And he wanted to share his experiences as an athlete through the medium of sculpture. We all know this part of Riverside Park Center. They claim 50,000 visitors each month. A very high degree of this for emerging lead artists. As part of their requirements too, they have to present just what I'm presenting to you. They have to present to the community board. I believe it's community board number 7. So they are placed into an environment in which they're reaching the public and explaining the purposes of their particular work, not just to the high officials of the park. And then the third presentation, Caroline, who's in year 5. Her work is an enormous hammered metal abstract bird in flight, entitled Metamorphosis. And I think she presented a very worthy oral presentation that addressed not only what issues are important for the permit and the public to protect the public through proper use of materials and sound engineering principles, but also giving a sense of what the relationship is between the site, the pedestal, and the potential for the work in a very elevated statue that exemplifies a lot of the young, hard-working artists. A lot of the students do their own work. And they're able to work and conceive of a very large scale, whether it's casting with mono or in the instance of that's another form of education. Students having scholarships that pay for their enlargement in which they participate under the supervision of directors and owners of fabrication studios and drawing studios. So in a sense, those are included as teachers in a very meaningful way with emerging artists. The final slides show the impact of the transportation of the enlargement. And for the new artist, this is first, you don't know what's involved until it starts to happen. Now, we did this every year for these past 6 years, and 7th year. I'm happy to say I'm on a year sabbatical at the league, but I'll be going at it very soon. This is her most recent work, unveiled by Albert in Monaco. In addition to all of that, Van Cortlandt Park has been the site of our collaborative team effort monument, which teaches another perspective in terms of how artists cooperate in teams and how that can work or not work. This is a description and also an illustration of the thoroughness of this work, which is entitled Flock. Every year, the Nature Center director would give us guidance in terms of a particular theme important to visitors in Van Cortlandt. Van Cortlandt being so different than Riverside Park South in terms of what it's offering to us in the study of nature, the flights of migratory birds. This is a sculpture that celebrates the different migratory patterns that occur to this constituency in all 5 boroughs known as the bird-watching community. And then in permanent placement, we have placed over 35 works from the M2M program with SUNY, starting with the community college at Rockin. They have a program, Art in Public Places, and now you will see some of our league artists and their works have final outcomes that are permanent at different garden sites and academic centers throughout this particular community. Here is Michael's work along the sculpture trail on the left, and here it is on the right in permanent placement. Matthew's bronze casted siren, there he is right up there. This is Hammered Metal, a work entitled New Age with John Balsamo. Gwen, is John part of NSS?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's here, but he was last year.
All right. Nice. One of the sites is a wharf site at Riverside South. It's literally a pier jutting out into the Hudson. And at the end of the pier, we had a display opportunity. And every year, one of the M2M students was assigned the sort of aquatic site of the sculpture trail. Ann Stanner, again, temporary 9-month permission and then permanent placement at Rockin Community College. The same with Alston, Renato. Thank you very much. Any particular question that people might have?
I have one simple question.
Yeah.
Your works for Stratford,
Yeah.
the final model looked to me like a terribly fragile thing, and yet you said it was cast outside of Paris. How did you get it there?
Well, I have different strategies. Some are FedExing ahead the molds.
So you molded it here,
Yeah, molded
and
here and
just
send it.
shipped the mold here.
Yeah, or I may do that with the wax casting and leave the mold in New York. Sometimes I complete a work that begins as a clay and then is waste molded, and I bring the unfinished plaster and I finish it within the foundry. There's a lot of different ways. Of course, I no longer can bring Professor Stanley Wells the small Shakespearean maquettes, as I once did when I began in 1998. I would bring the different studio possible models, and I could put those in the overhead. Now they're considered weapons, and I can't even get them on the airplane.
Wow. I wanted to bring them on. They said it had a weapon.
Yeah, they're pretty dangerous.
Wax somebody.
Yes,
I have taken care of small ones.
you're at risk. I've had one confiscated in Florence Airport.
I give him my letters, bronze figures, and when she passed, I'm going to fly back to Florida, and that's what happened.
They consider it a weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There's Marito over there, one of the M2M students. Any other students from the program? And then in terms of apprentices, we have Rena, our video artist, and we have Timur, and John is back there. His permanent work is at the Georgetown University Medical School, where we have a student sculpture garden consisting of 10 pieces that include Rena's work and Timur and John.
Yes.
How do these students go about finding proposals for places for their work? Or
Well, they're now plugged in because of their acceptance by the jury of the Art Students League into the M2M program. They're now plugged into the communications of the Parks Department, which is giving them all kinds of opportunities all the time.
So are they all paid opportunities?
Some are for permanent works,
Some are just temporary.
some are for temporary display. Yeah. And now they're networking with each other, which is very exciting to see. And Gwen, aren't they also networking with NSS?
Yes, yeah, and actually thanks to Greg, a lot of his former students, Rena and Timur, two of them, are now part of NSS, and it's been a great connection for us. It's sort of, they're like, you know, it's like cousins who are getting more and more involved in the family again. It's a great connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many actually works that you showed where the sculptors, a lot of them are involved in NSS. Even some of the abstract works you showed, the sculptors also do figurative work.
Yeah, we have a jury that includes the Parks Commissioner, I believe the sculpture director at the Marlborough Gallery, the director there at Students League, myself.
And the current director of the Smithsonian Sculpture Program, I think was a former student of yours.
Yes, that's
And
right.
she's involved with the National Sculpture also.
Actually, I could point her out. Young Karen Lenny.
Yeah.
Townsend.
So she's now the chief curator at the Smithsonian for sculpture.
Yeah, there she is.
And so it's a great person to know when I have a question, or vice versa.
Now, we also have Neil Katz, I noticed here.
Yeah, Neil is here, an architect who's now involved. Thank you, Neil. Neil juried something for us recently, which was a great help. Thank you so much.
He's a cathedral person, to be sure, a peace fountain person. Good seeing you, Neil. Anyway, other questions?
Any other questions? Well, Greg will be here, so as you're eating lunch or having coffee, we'll continue to ask.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's most wonderful is to see a celebrated, recognized, talented artist who is passing to the next generation, nurturing and coaching the young emerging talent. And this is what you should also be celebrated.
Thank you.